All right, let's get started here. Hope everyone's having a nice weekend. I've got a fairly substantial update this week in not only Bitcoin, ETHBTC, miners, MicroStrategy, SPY, Nasdaq. We're going to do the dollar. We're going to do yields. And we're going to start off with what we have in front of us right now. And this really frames most of, I think, the thesis overall for me more than anything else. You know, we get caught up in narratives. Everyone gets caught up in narratives because narratives, in my opinion, are what drive emotion, and emotion are what drive in turn irrational behavior and thought. And so often we find in hindsight when we make when you make decisions based on short-term emotion, you look back and say, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And so in looking at the thesis on all markets, on Bitcoin, really going back a few years when I really started getting into this, I'm viewing this entire cycle as, you know, kind of the world cycle. Let's just call it that. When you look at the global money supply, which is what I have here in front of us in a monthly chart, and we look at the Bitcoin chart, as you all have seen me share my thoughts on our Bitcoin cycle, and you see me draw it out, having started in early January, this cycle, early January, right? We did one of these guys, and this is what Bitcoin. That's the Bitcoin chart overlay, okay, for lack of a better term, and or back of a better image, and so it kind of all revolves around global liquidity, in my opinion, more than the halvening, or more than what, you know, every 4 years this has to happen, that has to happen, and here we are on the weekend after markets have exceeded previous all-time highs. And all I kept hearing last year, end of 2022, was, you know, we're starting a bear market where markets aren't going to get back to all-time high anytime soon. The most dominant themes were, you know, going down another 20% or chopping sideways for years and years and years. And here we are, markets that are all-time highs, Bitcoin not quite there yet. However, if we're looking at what drives these cycles, in my opinion, and again, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't use what I'm sharing as any type of financial advice. I'm just doing this as pure education. Do your own research. And so with that, what I see here on a monthly chart, and it's, you know, I don't even know if you're allowed to do technical analysis on global money, but I am. And what I'm seeing is a lot of similarities in terms of the setup that we saw prior to the massive, you know, 40% of new money being created, you know, in less than a year time frame. The setup looks very, very similar. And isn't that something, right? The setup with Bitcoin right now looks very, very similar to me as it did going into the pre-expansive phase in the fall of 2020. And so these are the things that drive my narrative and my bias, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I just have my feelings, and that's what I'm here to present. I most certainly could be wrong. But what we're seeing here is in January of 2018, no surprise. This is where, you know, December 2017, that's where Bitcoin topped. Okay, that's where Bitcoin topped. And Bitcoin, to my mind, is the arbiter of global liquidity more than anything else. And so Bitcoin topped in 2017, and you saw global money downtrend, 7-8 months, reverse. And incidentally, this is where Bitcoin bottomed, okay? Late 2018, early 2019, that area right there, right as global money was finding a bottom. And I always get the question of, you know, does there need to be stimulus for risk assets to do well? Well, no. I mean, it's all relative to in my mind, so today, let's just jump ahead as I'm kind of being a little fragmented here. Today, in terms of the amount of money that's in the system, let's go look back at April of 20 or March of 2022, April 2022 timeframe, when Bitcoin hit its first all-time high prior to the November, the following later that year. Well, right now there's there's more money in the system than there was back then when Bitcoin was in the $60,000 range. And so it's not about, is there enough, do we need more money? Well, there's more money today than there was then, and the price is 30-40% lower. To me, it's about what the direction is, and smart money is trying to telegraph what's coming, not what's happening right now, what's coming. Much like smart money in 2017 said, okay, we see the trend changing. This was a trend change, and Bitcoin topped. Okay, and then down here, December 2018, look at that downtrend was broken, trend change, and Bitcoin bottomed. And so the ultimate question is not what's going on today, but the anticipation of what's coming. And so as we see with this type of pattern, we had this downtrend, breakout, kind of retest previous all-time high with a deviation, not quite get there, but then catch this little support and run, right? This ascending triangle type structure. Essentially, it's just a massive consolidation structure with a series of higher lows, higher lows, and kind of compression at the top, which then releases itself to an upside. And so what we have today is very, very similar, right? The first, and this is why I contend back in November of 2022, when Bitcoin hit its all-time high, was in a correction, right? The downtrend was established. We had a little bit of a fake out, and then the downtrend resumed, but we caught this higher low structure, and now we've broken out. We're doing a retest, and again, there's nothing guaranteed, but this chart's telling me that we're on the precipice of potentially massive monetary stimulus globally. And so that's kind of where we are. Is Bitcoin not responding because GBTC is selling? Possibly. Is Bitcoin not responding or getting a little cutback here because global money is cutting back? I mean, since October, we had 1-2 months of massive increases. What did Bitcoin do? Massive increase. In January, we had a check back. What did Bitcoin do? It checked back. And so, yeah, you could blame it on GBTC, but the net flows have been positive. So you take everything that GBTC has sold, and that has all been absorbed, if not more. I believe it's maybe 200 million or 200, is it 200 billion more? I don't know. It's a big number. It's a big number. So the net is positive. And so what I'm trying to get at, folks, is, to me, it's less about these narratives and more about the picture that I'm presenting here today. Okay. And so with that, let's go to Bitcoin. And I've got the weekly chart up, and I've got this count up that we've all been kind of seeing me talk and track for a long time now. And again, nothing has really changed. This is just, we're at the same price we were back in early December. And sentiment feels like it does, or it did. You all remember when I started doing these videos, right? I started doing them in August. Sentiment feels like I'm having to be a coach like I was back here. This is what I feel like when I do these videos or post on Twitter. I feel like I did back here, having to constantly remind people of the structure. Back here, the structure was massively bullish. There's nothing about it, right? We had this accumulation, breakout, retest, double bottom retest, and this is bullish support we are most bullish at. And you heard me say that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And now we're simply consolidating, compressing, and that's bullish. That's bullish until proven otherwise. And so that's my stance. And are things playing out in the time that I proclaimed? Definitely not, right? Timing is not my strong suit. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm an optimist. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I see this major move coming, and I see us getting to 90 to 130, 40K very, very quickly. I don't see this thing being a Protron new bull market. I've made no qualms about that. And so that to me is the next move, whether it happens this month, whether it happens next month, we're going to have to find out. But that is how I'm approaching this count, and nothing has changed. Next, the monthly chart. And so I indicated, I don't know if I did this on the last video or not. I believe I did, that we're at an important kind of inflection point on the monthly chart. I've got the Ichimoku cloud up here. We closed under it last month. Right now, we're right under it. We are trying to poke our head above it. Let's see, what is the top end of that cloud? Let me really zoom in here. Top end of this cloud is at 42,727. So all I really care about in terms of my uptrend thesis is a monthly close above 42,700 and change. Let's just call it 43,000. That's what I'm looking at. That is a sign of, on the monthly time frame, trend continuation. Now let's pull up the Bollinger Band to get some to get a very strong signal. If we get a close above that on the monthly, as well as where we are right now, we're literally sitting on top of the Bollinger Band. Top end of the Bollinger Band is 41,679. We're at 41,718. This is the Bitfinex chart. And so a confluence in closing above this monthly Bollinger Band, excuse me, as well as the cloud at 40, just under 43, is a strong signal to me of further trend continuation. And the next stop has always been for me this $75,000 to $80,000 region before any type of short consolidation. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we busted right through that, given this is the most, if we're from a wave structure where I think we are, this is the most powerful portion of that wave structure. And let me do one more thing, folks. Let me do one more thing. I'm going to go back to the count, and I want to ask anyone that's bearish one thing. If Grayscale had sold, they did sell a lot, 500 billion or something, or not 500 billion, 500 million. I don't know the number. Don't quote me, folks. It's a lot of Bitcoin. Yet we're still above 40K. We haven't had a 20% plus correction since the breakout last January. We haven't had that. And that's fairly common in an asset like Bitcoin. But the sell the news narrative, the dumping from Grayscale, I think there was a whale that sold at 48, 49 or something. He'd been holding on since 49K when he bought. If all that couldn't bring this market down and couldn't break this market structure, that's a sign as well. That's a sign of strength. That's a sign of strength in the market. So with that, I'm going to keep moving. ETHBTC, I did this one 2 weeks ago, and I said at the point where we were, we needed a very, very strong reaction. We needed a strong reaction. We needed to kind of confirm this hidden bullish divergence that I've got outlined here, down here, expressed in RSI, and a couple of reasons I was looking for that strong reaction. It just goes back to 2017, the inception of this massive consolidation structure that I've got outlined, the support structure that I've got outlined with the rectangle here. And so we got the reaction. We got the reaction that I was looking to get, and that's really good for alts. For those that are interested in how alts may perform or should perform, this is very, very bullish. And again, for narratives, for me, I'm not a big fan of. And so this is pointing to me like if Bitcoin starts expanding and goes through its expansion, I expect alts to do the same at the same time. I don't know if we're in the same, all Bitcoin pumps first, alts relax, and then Bitcoin, consolidates and alts take off. Maybe that's how it plays out, but looking at the ETHBTC chart just tells me these two and alts are kind of primed to pump all together, and Bitcoin dominance potentially would come down dramatically in that scenario. So for now, that's how I'm viewing that structure. Next, let's go to Mara. And Mara has been, it's been a tough one for the last few weeks. And I've started presenting this chart back in the summer as we were kind of going through this ABC correction. This is where I started charting Mara. Started seeing a breakout here. The first move really exceeded my expectations. I was looking at 23, 24, 5 area where I had this one mark. This 2 came down below where I expected it to come down. But that's what markets do, right? Everyone and their brother can draw this support line. How hard is this? This is charting 101. Draw a support line at a point where the most confluence in a chart on a high time frame is, and that's that green rectangle. And so where are all the stop losses? There was stop losses, or this red candle that we saw last week. There are your stop losses. That if I'm trying to trade in and out of this thing, that's where I would have put my stop losses, but I didn't. I've got positions that are open. Again, most of my positioning always in spot, and so these fluctuations are just part of the game. Now, that being said, we did see a similar type of setup back in the fall of 2020, where we had a very clear support structure that went all the way back to 2017, right? And this support structure deviated, consolidated around it, and then bam, and then bam, and then kind of, I mean, it's not that I've seen better lines, but for all intents and purposes, this was the resistance, flipped it, and then kind of gapped down below it before it made its move up. So does the fact that we've, couldn't hold that area make me bearish? No. But what I do want to see, I don't want to see a second close next week below it. That's bearish. Let me be very, very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of straight down is acceptable for a correction within an impulse. So we had an A, B, C. Okay. I do not want to see another close below this level. I don't expect we're going to see it. I think the spring action, if we look at the daily candle on Friday, that's a very bullish candle structure. Okay. That's a spring type of reversal candle, which I like to see. And so my expectation is that these things bottomed last week, and I'm fully expecting to see reversal going into next week. Could I be wrong? Absolutely, anybody could, but that's how I'm seeing it. Next, let's go to MicroStrategy. Next, let's go to MicroStrategy, and let's just pull this up here. All right, MicroStrategy, again, a correction. I expected little corrections along the way, I'll be honest, but this one was brutal. And much like we had a 1, 2, and then you got a little check back to an important support level. That's where I believe we are now. I really thought this was the check back in November. But it most certainly wasn't, right? We had a move and then a check back, and I really want to see this hold from a support structure standpoint. Nothing is changed in the structure. I see a lot of upside to come. Could it do the same thing Mara did? Sure. Could it, drop below it and then violently reverse? Absolutely. But My expectation, again, is that a weekly close above that zone next week. That's what I want to see. And that's what I want to see. All right, next. SPY. So SPY's been doing pretty well, huh? So fresh all-time highs. This is a daily chart. This is my count as I've been kind of following it, and pretty close, I think, to the counts I've been tracking. You know, we had a nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then running a flat type correction here, and now we're breaking out. Does that mean that it's just going to go, you know, straight up? Nope. Could. You know, sometimes you do see at these all-time highs, you know, a little consolidation prior to moving. But I don't, if this indeed is the 2, then you would expect to see, you know, you would expect to see some significant follow through, not in a straight line, but that continues to be my expectation. Next is the Nasdaq. And the Nasdaq, again, much like the SPYs, I kind of talked about us being very similar to where we were back in this 3-4 correction coming out of it. Very similar, right? 3-4 kind of come out. We get a little retest of this important zone that goes all the way back to the 5 impulse. And now, again, I'm just expecting continuation. Is it going to be a straight line? Absolutely not. Could we get a little consolidation next week? Sure. But the next move in the Nasdaq for me is just continued price discovery with or without a potential short-term consolidation. And when I say short-term consolidation, I'm talking about like a percentage point, half a percentage point, nothing major. I don't see major correction in our future. All right, next is the dollar. The dollar, this one's been a little bit stubborn. This one hasn't been tracking as I've been outlining in my last 2-week video, right? If you guys remember, I've had a downtrend. I've been saying this is a downtrend until proven otherwise. Those are my exact words. Okay, that's a downtrend. Well, we had a break of a downtrend. We had a break of a downtrend. We had a consolidation above it, and now we've got a breakout. Now, does that mean that we're starting a new breakout? No, it doesn't. What it means is that this counter trend rally was a little bit more powerful than I had anticipated. Now, what's important right now from a technical perspective of where we are on the chart is where it's stopping right now, and it's stopping on the daily at this cloud area. Okay, and we got 1, 2, 3 rejections, and the third daily rejection was red. So that to me is a very, very good sign for continuation in the primary trend of this, that it's been in, and this being simply a deviation out of a downtrend and then resumption of the downtrend. That's still my bias. I could be wrong. This could be a legitimate downtrend breakout, retest, and then consolidation here. And if we get through that cloud, that's a new trend. That's a significant new trend. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. The bias is still for the downside on the dollar. We'll continue to monitor that weekly. Finally, the 10-year, again, this did the same thing. I was not looking for, I was calling this what I saw as I saw it, which was a downtrend. Okay, downtrend. And we broke out of this downtrend, and yet stocks are making all-time highs. So downtrend breakout, you got a little retest there. And where are we stopping right now? Much like the dollar, we're stopping right at this cloud area, and we've got a reversal candle. We've got a reversal candle. This is the type of candle I want to see at the end of a trend. Okay, that's a type of candle I want to see at the end of a trend. Rejected right off the cloud, not a lot of coincidences. And so my expectation is continuation to the downside as the overriding trend, resumption. Now, if we consolidate here, get into this cloud, reclaim that area, then I'm wrong. And then there's a new trend potentially established, and we'll have to take a look at that. But where this is the supply that is running up against, the supply goes all the way back to October of 2020. Okay. That is a strong area of supply in yield. So that's how I'm going to be kind of watching and tracking yields. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and take care. We'll catch you on the other side next weekend.